The Washington Wizards have won the 2026 draft lottery and will be picking number one overall in this upcoming NBA draft. A lot of stuff to unpack when it comes to the draft lottery this year. I'm going to try to hit most of it. Yeah, I'm going to try to hit most of it. Number one, we're going to start at the top. The Washington Wizards, number one pick in the draft this year, likely going to take AJ Dembonsa out of BYU. Now, this is interesting because the Wizards are the first team who's had the worst record in the NBA to get the number one pick since 2018. And it's actually crazy because next year, with the new anti-tanking stuff they're bringing in, the worst record in the NBA has lower odds to get the first pick. So if it was next season, it would have been a likely chance that they wouldn't have gotten the first pick in this draft. But it's this season. Another thing with the Wizards is very intriguing roster over there. Very intriguing roster. They were kind of buyers this year, going out and trading for Trae Young, going out and trading for Anthony Davis, and still ended up with the first pick. Now, of course, it's kind of up in the air what their actual roster is going to look like, but just to play on, I guess, devil's advocate, or just to play on the occasion, they could potentially run out a lineup of Trae Young, AJ Dembonsa, Kaishan George, Alex Sarr, and Anthony Davis. That's a pretty good starting five, if you ask me. That's a real good starting five, if you ask me. And they still got Trey Johnson, who was a top 5, top 6 pick last season, or coming off the bench with that lineup. So Trae Young is an inspiring contract. Anthony Davis, I think Anthony Davis has one more year on his contract. But I kind of see Anthony Davis potentially being moved, maybe. But I don't think he make the Trae Young trade without having plans of re-signing him. Now, I don't think you're going to give him the bag that he wants, but you're probably bringing back Trae Young this year. Anthony Davis hopped on a podcast and was saying that it's hard to go from one of the worst teams in the league to a champion. I want to be a champion. So maybe this is not the spot for AD, but I personally would at least run it and see what happens. But man, I definitely think adding the number one pick makes this team a playoff contender. I think they probably could have been a playoff contender this year with the guys they added. But going into next season with AJ Dembonsa makes this team, they at least should be fighting for the play-in spot for a fact. And I think with these anti-tanking rules, we're not going to see too much tanking, especially from the Washington Wizards. The Wizards is very, very intriguing. Very intriguing. As a Hawks fan, I know they have Travis Schlenk is an executive for them. He was a former executive for us. He was a part of the minds that put together that 2021 Eastern Conference Finals team. He left us, went to Washington, and they also brought in their GM. His name escapes me, but their GM is actually from OKC, and we see what OKC is doing. So you look at the moves they made. They've drafted well. The moves they made in the offseason or in trade deadline, and even now getting a top pick, big time, very big time. So we're gonna see what the Wizards can do moving forward. Now, number 2 is the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz, another team that was tanking heavily. They actually got fined for tanking because they sat Larry Markkinen and Jaren Jackson, all them guys. They sat them all. They're going to get the second pick. This is also a team that I believe with the roster they had, they could have been fighting for a play-in spot. But you go out and get who potentially could be DP Darren Peterson out of Kansas. You add him to this lineup. You could be running out there with a lineup of Keontae George, Darren Peterson. At your 3, you run Lauri Markkinen. At your 4, you run Jaren Jackson. At your 5, you got Walker Kessler. And off the bench, you still got Ace Bailey. You still got Kyle Fapowski. You still got Isaiah Collier. That's a very good team over there. I think that team just became really nice. Really, really nice. And we know Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge was a part of building this Celtics team that we're still seeing now. So, crazy. The Jazz are the winners. The winners of this lottery, 1 and 2, are playoff contenders. They should be in the playoffs next year. Could be in the playoffs next year. Maybe not say should be, but they could very well be in the playoffs next season. And they're adding 2 guys that I think could come in and be ready off rip in AJ DeBonsa and Darren Peterson. Darren Peterson is probably my favorite guy in this draft. I love his ceiling. I love his floor, and I love his ceiling. Number 3 pick, the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Memphis, I'm not going to dive too deep into what they got going on, but they got decision maker with Ja Morant. Ja Morant has, I want to say, 1 or 2 more years left on his contract. It's a very big contract, but you got the number 3 pick. So this pick can be used to pair with Ja Morant, whether it's a Cam Boozer or a Caleb Woodson, who I think are the 2 consensus guys for that 3rd and 4th pick. Bring those guys in and pair them with Ja Morant, along with those other young guys like a Zach Edey, a Cedric Coward. We can see what they got going too. You know, I think the big thing for them is you got to get, if you're going to keep Ja, you got to get him healthy. You got to get him healthy, because even in the season where he had like a down year, he averaged 20 points and 8 assists. He's still pretty good at the game of basketball. He's just about keeping him on the court. So the Wizards, boom. The Grizzlies, boom. 4th, we got the Chicago Bulls. Chicago finally getting some draft luck. This is their first time having a top 4 pick, I want to say, since Patrick Williams back in, what was it, 2020? When they had that Pat Will pick. They've been fighting in the play-in for the last several seasons for no good reason at all. They haven't made the playoffs, I don't think. And yeah, they haven't made the playoffs. So, I think they should go and get Darius Acuff. They need a point guard bad. And I just don't think, I don't know. Caleb Wilson is intriguing to me for sure. But Darius Acuff to me is the pick for the Bulls. I don't think they'll take him, but I think that is the pick for the Bulls for sure. Number 5. This is one of the more interesting things about this draft, y'all. The Clippers have the number 5 pick. Wow. The number 5 pick belongs to the LA Clippers. Now, the interesting thing about this is because the pick initially belonged to the Pacers. But the Pacers trading for Zubac in the trade deadline had protections from 1 to 4 and 10 to 30. So it just couldn't fall 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th. And it would be their pick. Y'all, 5th pick, it goes to the Clippers. So if we take a look at all the whole draft, the whole trade details for the Zubac trade, they traded away Benedict Mathurin, somebody else, Benedict Mathurin, what turned out to be number 5 pick, a 2029 unprotected pick, and another player that eludes me right now, all for just Zubac. Zubac had a really good season last season, but you traded away a bunch of really good pieces for Zubac, and it didn't work out in your favor. Craziness. The Pacers are the losers of the deadline. Besides the Kings still one of the worst teams in the NBA, not getting a top 4 pick. They're probably gonna try to be back here again next year. Boom. But the Pacers not getting a top pick at all and basically tanking. They were also a heavy tanker. Another heavy tanker ended up not getting top 4, ended up losing their pick in its entirety. Man, sucks to be them. Another team I want to talk about kind of is my Hawks. I want to talk about my Hawks here. My Hawks had 2 opportunities to jump up with the Bucks pick and the Pelicans pick. Ended up falling at 8. I think there's still decent amount of talent that the Hawks can get at 8. You know, I'll have a whole other video about the draft guides and what we should do for the draft. I'll do that, you know what I'm saying, at a later time, for sure. That's not this kind of video. But it sucks. I'm mad. I'm mad that we did not jump up, for sure, because it just felt like this was our shot to do so. Now, the 8th pick ended up being the Pelicans pick. Pelicans, another interesting take, man. Pelicans could have had 2 top 10 picks in this draft. They traded their pick. They traded their pick to us, but they also had the Pacers pick. The Pacers traded for the Pelicans for their 2026 draft pick the day of Game 7. So before Tyrese tore his Achilles, the Pacers acquired back what turned out to be the number 5 pick. So the Pelicans could have had the 5th pick and the 8th pick in this draft. Instead, they have no pick in this draft. Now, granted, I look at Pelicans fans. I'm seeing on Twitter and online, the Pelicans fans are fine. Hey, we traded Derek Queen for the 8th pick, and that's not that bad. I mean, you look at it, depending who this 8th pick turns out to be, it may not be that bad at all. You know what I'm saying? I think over the course of the season, the Pelicans fans started to think, okay, as long as it's not no top 5 pick, we're kind of fine with Derek Queen. Now, Derek Queen struggled in the second half of the season, but I think he'll be fine for sure. The Warriors don't jump up. The Thunder, thank God the Thunder didn't jump up. So, yeah. NBA draft, man. We're going to have a whole bunch of draft content coming. We have some prospect profiles. I think is what I'm going to call it, prospect profiles. We're going to go through these players, go through who the Hawks should pick. And there's just a lot. There's a lot that has to happen before the draft, you know, and the day of the draft. Because we could definitely see some trades happening as well, like we saw last season with these picks. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Next year's going to look completely different with these anti-taking guidelines and anti-taking rules. The Silver said himself, the process is going to be a lot more competitive for that top pick. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. You know what I'm saying? But until next time, that's all I got for y'all, man. Make sure to subscribe button, like, comment, share with your folks. Until next time, going for 2, we out of here. Yeah.